Blessings to everyone. This is Father Jerome Marquez, SVD, and we welcome you to our program, a series of witnessing to the light from everywhere for everyone. As you know, we are celebrating our 150th founding anniversary, and to put that into context, we have a remarkable guest, a missionary to Japan, who hails here from Italy, Trento, Father Osvaldo Cavallar, SVD. Greetings, Father Osvaldo.
Nice to be here with all of you.
And what led an Italian from Western Europe to go and spend 44 years in Asia, Japan?
I'll give you two answers. You know probably Marco Polo. He's from Venice and he went to China. I'm just a little bit north of Venice and I decided to go further. Just to go further than China, you have to go to Japan. Australia was not known at that period. That's one answer. The second answer is when I was student, I was here in Rome, and by chance I met the president of Nanzan University, Johannes Hirschmeier. He's a German. He studied at Harvard University and then went back to Japan. And among his plan was to start a department of history. And so, just talking, he heard that I was interested in history. And so he asked me, he told me his plan. I'm planning to open a department of history.
That's it.
That's how it started.
What was your image of Japan when you left Italy that time?
No, there were a few Japanese studying here in Rome.
Italy. Uh-huh.
Yes. And so they were very kind, quiet. They liked mountain climbing. I like mountain climbing too. And so for almost every summer for 1 week, went to my hometown in the Alps and started, let's say, mountain climbing there. And so there was after that, after meeting with the president, there was this kind of connection with some of the Japanese, and so I didn't know too much of Japan, but I knew a few people, a few things about the culture and so on, and that I think made my decision very easy.
When we speak of Japan, I speak of a society high on technology, on robotics. Is that the Japan that you saw still now, Father?
Japan has a long history, and so you cannot cancel the weight of history looking at technology. There is art, literature, there is kabuki, there are the martial arts, and so on. There is this aspect of the culture, and then there is the modern society, efficient, speedy, clean, and whatever you like. However, if you ignore the tradition, I think you are missing something very important of the Japanese.
Which is what, Father?
It's the tradition, it's the history, it's the background, it's the literature, it's the religion, Buddhism, Shintoism, and so on.
So how do you see yourself, Father, as a missionary, SVD, teaching as a professor of history?
I see myself as somebody that is learning something, not teaching something. For instance, start with nature. Mm-hmm. Start with, let's say, the way you pray, you do meditation. There is, let's say, for instance, the Zen tradition. Mm-hmm. And the way you can use it for your meditation, for your spirituality.
So the Japanese are praying, Father?
They are praying. You see them at the beginning of New Year's, and then if they come, for instance, the celebration of the university, they are very polite. They are nice, and they are praying in their own way. It's not my way of praying. It's not your way of praying. It's not the way of praying of my grandmother.
But you learn from that way of
Yeah,
praying.
it's let's say there are basically two big religions, Buddhism and Shintoism. They are mixed up, but I think Zen it offers us a lot of possibilities. For instance, if you think of the body, the posture, and respiration, relaxation, and all this stuff is something that you can incorporate in your own meditation. And you don't have to be on your knees. You can sit down and be probably much more relaxed. And obviously, if you are relaxed, it's probably you might fall asleep. But you can even probably go on a deeper level on your prayer.
Father, you've been teaching for how many years in Japan?
But I started teaching at the University of Chicago, and the president then asked me if I want to go back to Japan, and
you did.
I said yeah. I said yes, but probably I should have said no.
Any regrets, Father?
Teaching at the University of Chicago is much more exciting, probably.
What were you teaching, Father?
European legal history, especially medieval legal history and history of the political thought. History of the political thought is basically the period around Machiavelli and Guicciardini. And what is interesting is that Machiavelli and Guicciardini were two very good friends. And Machiavelli, his formation is basically the humanistic formation. Guicciardini's friend comes from an aristocratic family, and he studied law. He went into politics, become an excellent politician and an excellent historian. But his background as a lawyer, as a jurist, was almost completely forgotten. And so what I did for my first book is just research his work as a jurist. Practiced as a lawyer, and he was very successful. And what interested me is there a connection between his political thought, between his the way in which he wrote history, and his legal formation.
What challenge did you have facing a Japanese students in college and in masteral program as an Italian missionary?
Obviously, you have to start with say that as a professor you have much more power. However, ignore power because I dislike it, basically. What I try to do is just obviously for the students, history of law it's something that's basically unknown because they think of law as something that the government may make. For instance, China. Law does not have a history, it's something that the government makes. And so what I decided to do, what is interesting for me, is say, okay, I'm looking at the European civilization. If you look at the European civilization, what you see? From the Roman times basically to now, there is law.
Okay.
And law, especially from the Roman time and in the Middle Age, is not made by the government. It's made by the jurist. It's an independent group of persons. If you look Japan now, if you look China, if you look basically any other country, the law is made by the state. And what is interesting in the European tradition is that law was made by the Roman jurist. After that, the emperor came in. But even if you look at medieval canon law, it's not made by the Pope. is gracious, and so law is not something that comes down
Above.
From the top. It's something that's created by a group of, put it this way, of
Jurists.
intelligent people, smart people, that they know their field, they know what they are doing.
And what's the purpose of that law that you speak to your Japanese
But
students?
it's just showing that law has a history. It's not that happens in the void. And so if you look at the law of your country, just think as something that is basically historical.
I remember the law in the Bible about that the Sabbath is made for man and not man for the Sabbath, which is the law. Am I
So
here
I
to
must,
follow the law, or the law is there to allow me to reach my goal, my ontological essence in life? Is that the law?
Law, it's there basically for the people. It's not there is no other reason.
So that law is at the service of the people.
But that's the basic idea of law. If you look, start with the Roman jurist, when although the Roman society, Greek society, you had slavery. Some of the jurists were saying that basically every human being is born free.
Wow. Father, is there validity in your presence in Japan despite the absence of
But
sacramental ministry?
I think don't take sacraments too narrowly. Sacraments, it's basically a sign. There are many different signs that we can use. How you attract people. How you, let's say, you show that Christianity is an interesting religion. You don't show by talking. You show it by example. I give you a very short, very brief and rather stupid example. There was somebody at lunch comes into my office. I was just eating a sandwich, and the other person was not a Christian, and so I decided, okay, I have one. Should we say, you want, I can split it, give you a half.
And that's it.
And then after that person changed completely. And a few years after, that person got baptized.
Oh, just by sharing that sandwich.
That's that the person, let's say, was impressed, because usually it's something, I think it's nothing extraordinary. I just say, okay, there is a person who wants to was office hour, and what you do.
So the school or the university like Nansan is a very good locus of dialogue between
Yes, I
Christianity and the culture and religion of Japan.
But it's a good place. There is an institute for religion and culture that is doing an excellent work. But I think on everyday level, if you look at the communication, it's a way of being present without being oppressive, without let's say, indoctrinating. You are there working on the same level without any pretension, just as they do. And that's
Not with your clerical...
But why you have to put
the
on
pretensions of a clerical...
I think if you put on the Roman collar, it's because you don't have identity. If you don't have any identity, if your identity is not inside, you dress up.
It's outside.
It's outside. It's just because you say your morning prayer, you go to the chapel before noon, or you go before supper. Okay, fine. And so identity is not of the outward. It's basically of the inside. The people, they see, they are able, I think, to see this.
And that witness happens in the school,
But
in
it happens,
research,
I think,
in your
because
relations with the student and
yeah,
faculty.
the students, let's say, they are very open, and they talk about their problems. They need advice. They ask for advice.
You speak Japanese, Nippongo.
Yes,
And
well, sometime now that internationalization is a problem for the students to say, okay, wake up. I do this course in English, and it took longer for the preparation. I did not cover so much material. However, I told the students, wake up. English is basically indispensable. Japanese, you know that they are reluctant to learn a foreign language, and so I had a number of Chinese students too, and so I wanted to say the same thing to my Chinese students and the Japanese students. Okay, become a little more international. Don't close yourself in your group.
Father, as I listen to you, I get an impression that if I'm a Japanese looking at an Italian coming to Japan and teaching a profane discipline like history, it opens my mind to see how this person witnesses to that light of, without being vocal about Christ and faith. Your presence by itself is a light in my, and it brings me to the reality of that internationality. Is that very SVD, Father?
I'm not so sure. I think being overconfident, I'm confident in my academic
You're so
work.
humble, Father. But is that the way as an SVD
I
is?
think that's the way is the way to do it in Japan. Probably elsewhere too, but I think Japan that's the way. I think the way of doing it, and then leave the rest to the Lord.
How do you speak with our young people who might be looking for a vocation? And would you have that invitation, Father?
For the church, I cannot speak. For the world, I think it presents a challenge, and I think it's always worth to take up a challenge. And I think working in the academic field, I think it presents different challenges. Some are intellectuals, and the other, what you do you break a new path? Do you do something that is original? What impact has your work on the other people?
What could have been your impact after 44 years in Japan?
I would not. I cannot measure it, and I don't think about it. I just do what it seems right to me. Is not. Otherwise, I end up measuring myself by my success. And this is probably not the best way to measure your missionary work by, let's say, success, number of churches that you've started, number of people you have baptized, or people you have married. I think it's not the proper way to measure success as a missionary. It's the impact you have on other people. If they stop and think, then that's more than enough for me.
Very well said, Father, and very clear. And some rapid questions. Give me a choice. Nagoya or Roma? No, Father. Pasta or ramen?
Sashimi.
St. Paul or St. Peter?
St. Francis.
Your favorite medieval legal figure?
Oh, it's Bartolo da Sassoferrato.
Because
He wrote against tyrants, and so we have a few tyrants around. And what is interesting is just thinking of abuse of authority. And for me, what is very interesting is that the first
I
one,
cut you down there, Father. Corpus Juris Civilis or Corpus Juris Canonici?
Ius Commune,
Common. Describe Japan in one word.
it's Japan.
And any word, message as an SVD missionary to those young people and migrants following us here on social media.
The message changes according to the audience. I don't know what my audience. If I'm talking to my students, if I'm talking with university professor, I know what to say. If I'm in a parish, I know what to say. Here I don't see my audience. My audience is virtual. And I think I end up speaking to myself, not to an audience. Be yourself.
That's it, Father. Well, Father, it's a grace to have you here for our program, and we wish our followers would continue sharing our social media account, witnessing to the light from everywhere for everyone. And thank you, Father Cavallar, Osvaldo, SVD. It's a pleasure. God bless you. This is Father Jerome Marquez.